Good afternoon, everybody. A couple of things. You know that the movie poster is due by the end of the week. That's when it should be turned in. And then next week, depending on how many I have received, I will have a critique, just as we did with the postcard. So for those of you who can attend, that would be great. For those of you who need or want an individual webinar, or whatever you want to call it, Zoom meeting to critique your work, we can do that. And then the next assignment is to work on the digital painting. We've had a couple of videos on that. So you can pick, it should be from a photograph. And you're going to convert a photograph into a digital painting. That's basically the exercise for the assignment. And it can be still life, it can be a portrait. It depends on how comfortable you feel with drawing, your drawing skills. But using the lesson in the book as an example, it's just converting one thing to another. And my recommendation is to make it into more of a kind of a loose expressionistic painting. If you try to make it look too photographic, then that's just what we're doing in Photoshop, is manipulating photographs. So you really haven't done anything. So that's my suggestion. Anyway, today what we're going to do is we're going to work on lesson 11. We'll see how far I get with it today. And anyway, it's working with editing video inside Photoshop. Okie doke. So this is the finished view of lesson 11. And as you can see, it has, if we look at the image itself, the start file here, it has these safe areas that have been marked out. And you'll notice at the bottom, it has a timeline. So let's go through all the settings that you'll need to pay attention to that are different from what we've worked on up to this point. So in order to see the timeline, because without the timeline, you can't edit the video, you go to the upper right-hand corner and we select from what we have worked in the past, which was essentials. And some of you may, in your photography classes, worked with photography settings. Some of you may have switched to type. But what we need to do, and for your painting, you should probably select painting. It's just an easier way to work. But for motion, for video, you have to select motion, because what that does is it brings up the timeline below. Everything else pretty much remains the same. All of your tools remain the same to the left. All of your layers, which are still important, exist over to the right, the right-hand corner. And you have our adjustment layers, and we have the histogram above and that sort of thing. But let's look at the timeline. So by default, we can change the size of it. And if I'm looking at this is probably very hard for you to see, but there's a little dial at the bottom. It's a slider that allows me to expand or to contract the timeline, depending really on how big my screen is. And if it's too condensed, you really can't see the individual clips that are inside. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch it out so I can at least see the handful of clips that we have in here. So a couple of things. You can play it from up here. Here's our playhead. So I can play that from here. That's it. And I can rewind it from here. I can fast forward it. And what I can also do is, if you want to turn off the sound, which may not be a bad idea right now, I can do that. There's some other features that we'll get to here very soon. If you want to clip a particular um, uh, video clip, you can if you want to cut it. If you want to add transitions, we can do that, which we will be doing here. And probably most important right here is your playhead. So that's what this is right here. Let me go ahead and click on it and drag, come on, come on, come on, select in here. And I can scrub across here and play the video. So let me go ahead and turn that back on. And why is it not scrubbing across? So let's see why. That's kind of weird. Select in here. As I move this across, oh, never mind. I got the wrong thing here. The playhead is all the way down at the end here. Ta-da, never mind, looking at the wrong thing. So here's the playhead at the very top. And I can scrub across and see what we're doing. You'll notice that we'll be adding some text that actually animates and moves across from right to left. We have some stills that exist on screen, and we have a couple of video clips that have been added. Okay, and there are some effects that we're adding like zoom, and we're manipulating in still images that exist on our screen. Okay, we're adding transitions. They have us add the crossfade from clip to clip, and we're adding and editing some sound in here. So that's what we're doing. And you can, you know, as I said, you can play through it or you can scrub through it here. Based on the processor speed of your computer, will determine how smoothly this scrubs across here and how well it plays when you play it. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to export it and we're going to publish it as an MP4 file. And that you can upload to the internet. You can to YouTube if you want, or any other, you know, social network. It will be an acceptable file format. If you want to, what else can you do with it? If you want to burn it on a DVD, you can do that as well. But you need to export it. You won't be able to do those things with the Photoshop file. Because this is a relatively short, it's only 10 seconds. This would be good for social media. It's kind of a pared down version of what Photoshop makes for their video editing software. Just a you know, stylized kind of version of that. And what that is, if I can look real quick, I'm going to look at my screen real quick. What do we have here? I have it. I never use it. I don't use Premiere. That's it. That's what we use. So I don't want that. So it's really kind of a pared down version of Premiere. So that's what we have in here. That's what we're working with. So what they have us do is we start from scratch, and then we grant it. But they do have the still images and the video clips for us to add. And it's really quite simple to do all of this. It's not hard at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New. Okay. And you can see up here, we have from our recent selections that I've made on my computer, save versions, if we have a photo. But what we want at the very end is film and video. Okay, that's what we're going to open. So they have some presets, some templates that you can work with that aren't bad. It's not a bad idea to work with that. But what we're working with right here is the HD video, HDV, which is 1280 by 720. That's what we want. And you'll notice over to the right, we have the settings. It's measured in pixels because video is set up for screens, not for printing. And it's measured in pixels. It's not measured in inches. 720, 1280 by 720. And the resolution only needs to be screen resolution, 72 pixels per inch. Color mode by default is RGB, should never be put in CMYK. And the background by default is white. So we can go ahead and we can create like so, brand new image. Okay, so we have our blank canvas. And because I've already changed the desktop settings to motion, I see what I have down here. So let me go ahead and try to move this up just a little bit so that you guys can see this a little bit better. There we go. Because we're going to do most of the work here in the timeline is what we're going to do. So what we want to do is we want to create, we have a little button right here. It says create video timeline. So I'm going to click that. And we have a placeholder for our first still clip is what it is. And by default, we have a single layer. And if you twirl down on it, you can now begin to add keyframes for position, for opacity, adding styles, that sort of thing. They can, same thing that you would do for still images, but in this particular case, they can change over time. So that's what we're going to do. And we're also, I'm going to go ahead and spread this out a little bit so you can see what's going on. By default, this first clip that they add by default is 5 seconds. And anytime you add a still, by default, it's 5 seconds. So that's what these guys do here. These allow you to add keyframes for each of these. And you can close the clip like so, Not the layer, just want the individual clip. Let's go ahead now. So what I want to do is I want to add media for this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, under this little button right here to the right, you click on it and we're going to add media. And they've already prepared it all for us. They've named it quite nicely. So in numerical order so that it comes in the order that we're supposed to place it, but it's easy to drag and drop and to move things around. So I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm going to go to, because I've been working on some other things in Lightwave and stuff like that. So I'm going to come down here to, if I can find it, my lessons. It'll be the Photoshop lessons for 2020. Come on, wherever you are. My desktop is so screwy. Here it is, Photoshop 19. I want Photoshop 20. That's Illustrator, Photoshop 19. So where's Photoshop 2020? It should be in here. Well, since I don't see it here, I could have this set up by dates modified. So here it is. It is up at the top. This is Photoshop Creative Cloud 2020 lessons. So you can either open it from here or you can open it from Bridge, whichever works best for you. So the next thing that I want to do, we're working in lesson 11. So I'm going to look at lesson 11 and twirl down, and you can see that we have a beach song, which is an MP3 file. That's the sound that we will be adding later on. And we have all of the other files here. Now, I don't want to bring in the end exported MP4 file, but I do want to select all of the others. So I'll click on the first one, the 6, hold down the Shift key, and I don't need the end file either, but I need all of these, the end Photoshop file, because that one is already open. And what I want to do is I want to open them all. So I'll go ahead and I click open, and it'll take a couple of seconds for them to import them all. And they'll automatically be placed on the timeline, and they'll automatically be placed in the order in which they were named. And because they started each, as I mentioned a moment ago, because each is started with a numerical, a number, that's the order in which they are placed. Now again, here's that placeholder that we have. So I'll select it. Come back in here and select it, make sure that it's highlighted. And if you want to get rid of a clip, you just delete it, and that's it. So here's the first one that we have. And this is actually in reverse order. which is really kind of weird. So the family belongs in the front. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move these around. This should not be an issue for all of you. So if I want this one to be at the front, I just simply click and drag and move it in the front. So now that's in the front. The next one should be the boat. So I'll move that next to them. And we'll make sure that that's in the front here. Okay, so then the boat. And then the next one after that should be dog at the beach. And I'll move that forward. And when you import these, that should not happen. So I must have done something weird to do that. The next should be the boy jumping. And then we have the dogs here again. And then we'll have our final one. So here's all of our clips that are in correct order. So I don't know why it ordered it. You know, 1 should be at the bottom and then 6 should be at the top. And it did it in the opposite order. So, but it's easy enough to correct when you're done. The next thing that we need to do is, and this is, again, per the lesson in the book, is that we need to shorten all of these clips so that they're the same length. And they want them all to be 3 seconds in length. Now, if I come back here and I click on the clip itself, let me go ahead and twirl down here so we can see what we're doing here. So I want this clip selected. And notice that if you hover over the end of the file, I can click and drag to shorten it. It does not permanently delete the remaining video from the end. It just simply clips it off the end. Because this is a still image, it really doesn't matter. But it would matter from a video clip, whether you're cropping from the front end or the back end of it. In this particular instance, we're going to take each of these clips and we're going to reduce the size of them to 3 seconds. And you can see at the top, it says duration and end. Well, we want the duration for each of these to be 3 seconds. So that's one way of doing it. And then as I do that, I can also stretch it out a little bit more at the bottom. Okay, so notice that this video clip, if I click here, okay, and I look at this, and I look at click on this button in the upper right-hand corner, you can see from here as well that we can go ahead and choose the duration or the speed from here. That's of the video. And if we click on the sound, we can also affect the volume and we can fade in the sound or fade out, or we can mute the sound from here too. So that's that little button in the lower right-hand corner, this one right here. Well, I'm just going to click on the end of each of these and I'm going to shorten them until they, like the first clip, are 3 seconds. So I want the duration to be 3 seconds. So I'm going to slow but sure, because for whatever reason, because I think I have a rendering going in the background. My computer is kind of sluggish at the moment. But I can always edit it from above too. There we go. Now we'll take this one. Let me go ahead and let's try this one. Let's go ahead and click it from here. Notice that the duration is 11.41 seconds. I'll just change it to 3 and hit tab key, and that changes that. So that's just a different way of doing it. And I get, again, as I said, this is non-destructive when you edit the video clips this way. So again, I want the duration for each of these to be 3 seconds. Why? Just because that's how they're structuring this edited video. So in the end, we should have something that's close to 10 seconds long. One here. So slow but sure. 3 seconds each. And then I'll stretch it out so I can see each of the clips a little bit better. So I'm looking at the duration, not the end, for all of this. There we go. Got my mouse working here. And I think I already mentioned, but anytime you bring in a still, it automatically sets it to 5 seconds, but you can make it longer, shorter, whatever works for you in the project that you're working on. So you could conceivably, if you have a series of still images, you can create a very sophisticated slideshow from here and add music, add voiceover, do all sorts of stuff with it. It's not a bad way to go. So I'll stretch this back out so we can see what we're doing here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one, the video for that. Because anytime you edit these, you have to select them. You come back, you select the clip that you want, and then twirl down. And then when you're done with it, you have to remember with a little arrow here to twirl back up when you're done. Okay, so you'll notice that it's a cropped in version of them. Well, what I want instead is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on this. I want to click on here again on this. And it says no motion because it's a still image. Well, in order to get it to compress and to fit full frame, you have to do something kind of weird because it is a little bit large. What we're going to do is we're going to say pan and zoom, okay, and resize the fit camera. So when you do that, and I click off of it and I click back on, click on the screen, it should resize. Now, you don't have to do that for the video, but for all of the still images, you need to do that. Okay, so you can see here we have our keyframes, beginning and end, that it's going to be the same size throughout. So we'll do the same for the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close that for the family. I'm going to come over here to the next still image. Okay, I'm sorry, that's a video. I don't need to change that one. My bad. I'll go ahead and this guy right here, this jumping guy, if I click in the upper right-hand corner, again, it's going to give me the same option. It says no motion. Well, I'm going to go ahead and select pan and zoom and click on the image, and you're not seeing a thing, but in order to see that change, you have to move the playhead down to this area here. Okay, so I'll do that for the last two images as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one. I'm going to open up this one so that it's affected here. Start the playhead, click in the upper right-hand corner here. And again, no motion, but I want to make sure that it properly fits. Pan and zoom, and we are going to add pan and zoom to this one. Click here, make sure that it properly fits. So there we go. And then I'll do the same for the last one. Close this one up, open this one up. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and click in the upper right-hand corner of this and to make sure that everything properly fits before I add any other motion effects to it. So I'll go ahead and pan and zoom, click on the screen, make sure that it properly fits. There we go. So it's a little bit smaller for all of those. So I've cropped and I've resized all of these. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some type to this. So if we look at the finished version here, I've got to make sure my computer catches up. Okay. We can see if I scrub over the playhead that we have text along the top. It says beach day. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to add another layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this one up right here. Okay, and I want to add a whole new layer here. So if I click here, we want to add, not a new media group, but I want to add a new video group. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And notice that it added a new video group. And because just like layers over here to the right are stacked on top of one another for print, And they stretch it, it stretches it out horizontally, linearly along the timeline. But in the stacking order here of the video clips, what we're going to do is it will be stacked on top of the video. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the type tool. Okay. And this is what I have from before. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click on this clip right here. Okay. And you'll notice that the type, come on, let's play it on here. Let's twirl down. So we have beach day here. And you'll see that we have Myriad Pro. The color is white and the size is quite large. It's 600 point. So now when I switch back over here, you can see that it still has Myriad Pro regular 600 point here. So now what I want to do up here is I'm going to go ahead and with the type tool, and it really doesn't matter where you put it at the moment. I'll go ahead and I'll click right here. And instead of lorem ipsum, I want beach day. I'm going to use all caps. Okay. And now what I need to do is with this twirl down, okay, I need to look at the video group here so I can see is that what we want to do is we want to move this in place. And we're going to change the opacity of it as well. So we want it to go from right to left. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in essence, set up a keyframe. So I'll use the move tool. And I'm going to move it down like so and move this over because this is where we want it to start, like so. And while it's here, I'll go ahead and I'll change the opacity of it. And I forget, I think they want it to be like, we'll make it 25%. If it isn't 25%, it's close. And now what we need to do is create keyframes. So that's what we're using when I use the little twirly here, is I can create a keyframe by using, clicking on that little clock button here. And that's what it does. It sets up a keyframe. So when our video begins, this is where the type ends. Now what I want to do is I want to move the playhead to the very end. And actually I'm going to shorten this. Let me move this back here on the top here. It's here, the very beginning. And I'm going to move this so that it's just a little bit beyond the 3 seconds, the duration. So it stretches over into the next video just a little bit. And now what I can do is I can move the playhead to the very end of our text clip. And then I can move this over. And I want to make sure that it moves over horizontally perfectly. So as I do that, I hold down the Shift key and move it all the way across, like so. So it ends up here, like so. Now you'll notice what it just did. It automatically added another keyframe. So now when I scrub across here, and we start at the very beginning, you can see that the B in beach day is over to the right. And as I scrub across, it plays across. Okay, so we've added our first little animation here. Now we don't need to edit the text anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and twirl that back up. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add, let's see, we've already cropped that. I'm sure I'm forgetting something here. I went over it before, but I'm getting old, my memory, what can I say? So what I want to do is let's go ahead and affect some other things in here. I'm going to go ahead and scrub all the way down to the boy here who's leaping, it looks like he's leaping off something. Okay, and I'm going to twirl down on him like so. Let's make sure that you can see everything down here. And again, we have a keyframe for him. It's already kind of set up. So we have motion is what we want. So I'll select the first one here, first key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it down to the bottom and then go to the end and move it up. So again, we're adding a different kind of animation, but again, to a still image. So I'll go ahead and I'll move it down and I'll hold down the shift key so it remains constrained like so. And I don't want to see any of the white down there. So like so. So that's our first keyframe. Whoops, no, come on. There we go. Make sure that I let go of the shift key afterwards. And then I'll move to the very end of our timeline here, or move the timeline to the end of the frame. And then I'll go ahead and I'll move it up. And it should automatically add a keyframe. So again, as I click and I drag and I move it up, and I hold down the shift key to constrain, notice that it did. It added a nice little keyframe there. So I'll move it all the way to the top here. There we go. Like so. And again, if we scrub through it, we can see that he plays through there. Now, another thing that we can do, I'm going to go ahead and twirl this back up because we don't need it right now. And the dog, okay? We're going to add an effect to this. And again, we want it to be at the beginning and the end. So I'm going to click up here. Let's go ahead and add our keyframe here. And I'm going to go ahead and at the very beginning, let's remove this keyframe as well. That should be removed. Let's make sure I'm doing this right. Move it at the beginning here. And I'm going to click here. And it says no motion. But what I want to do with this one is that I want it to be pan and zoom. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and resize the field of canvas. And we'll go ahead and add a little time here. And now as I zoom across, oh, come on. I didn't do it right. Let's go back here. It's all twirled down. Let's go ahead and add that. There's our keyframe. Let's go back up. No motion, pan and zoom. Okay. Now let's move it to the end, and you can see it's panning and zooming. It automatically did it all the way to the end. If you want it to happen faster, we can always move the keyframe and move it so that that pan and zoom happens quicker. We're going to do the same with the very end as well. So I'm going to close this one up. I'm going to open this one up. Let's move over here. The very beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and clear everything. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want it to pan and zoom throughout all of this. So I'm going to transform. And I'm going to click up here. And I want it to be pan and zoom. And transform. There we go. Just make sure that that is pan and zoom. There we go. So theoretically, this should pan across and zoom in there. Okay. So one more thing, not one more thing, just the next thing that we're going to do. And I'm probably not doing this in the same order, but for example, with a dog along the beach here. So let me go ahead, and I have to remember to close this up because I'm not using it anymore. Select the dog along the beach, and then we can add an adjustment layer to this, just like we can with a still image. And we can change this to a black and white. So that's what we're going to do. Make sure that the dog at the beach is selected. And then I'm going to switch to adjustment layers here. Let's move my image over here. And we want this to be a black and white. Okay. And this should be, and it automatically, you'll notice it's a little bit different than works with still, is that it affects just this and this alone. So I can go ahead and I can select it. I'm going to move my image again here. We're going to go ahead and add that tint to it. So just like a still image. Okay, and we can go ahead and we can change the video here. Okay, so we can go ahead with a playhead over that. We can go ahead and make sure that the position has been added. And we can scroll to the very end. If you want to add a keyframe to the very end of that, we can do that. But it really is unnecessary. So keyframes, for those of you who aren't aware, determine when there is a change, either position, size, color, you name it, a determined change, a specific change. And we changed it here, but it's not changing. It's staying black and white with the colorization throughout. Okay, so we've made a number of changes, and we can scrub through this, or we can play through this all through here. Now it looks like the family here. I may have added. It looks like I did. I forgot to turn off pan and zoom, so I don't want anything for them. We don't want a motion for them. So now when I scrub through here, so again, all of this can be edited, and most of it is non-destructive. So we're in good shape so far. Okay. But the next thing that we want to do, and you'll notice that when we go from one clip to the next, so let me play through this a little bit. And I'll leave the sound on because we don't have any sound at the moment. If I play through this, the type moves across. And you'll see that the boat scene actually has some sound that's built into it. But it plays through rather nicely. Okay. But when we go from one clip to another, it's a jump cut. We might want a nice smooth transition for that. Well, where we get those are right up here in this little button right here. These are for transitions, and you can click on that and you can see that we can fade, we can crossfade, we can fade with black, we can fade with white, we can fade with a color. Well, what we're going to do, and so you have a limited number of transitions from one clip to another, but really this is one of my favorites, and it's the crossfade, and it's used a lot. And all you do is simply click and drag, and you put it between the videos. And now when we play across, or just even scrub across this, you'll notice that as I move into that, you'll notice that the boat automatically and the family coexist in the same area. And then as the timeline moves across, it transitions into just the boat. Well, we're going to do that for each one of these. And I should go ahead and I should close that as well. So all I need to do is click here again, and I'll select crossfade and drag it in here like so, so that it's between each of these. At any time you want to change the duration of the crossfade, you can select it, and we can, let's go ahead and twirl down here. You can see what we're doing. Here, let's look at this one here. And if you right click on it, you can see right now it's a 1 second crossfade. And because each of the clips are only 3 seconds, you really can't have it any less or any more than that. But if you had a film clip that was 10, 15 seconds and you wanted the duration of that crossfade or the fade to be longer, then you can adjust it from there. Okay, so that's where that goes. You just right click on it, and if you want to delete it, you can delete it from here too. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add the crossfades to each of these in between them. So you just drag it in between each of the clips. And we've got that there. Ta-da, that's done. Okie doke. So what are we doing on time? Oh man, okay, we're gonna easily finish this today. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to add music. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna come over here to our audio track, and I'm gonna click right here, and I wanna add audio. As I said, they added an MP3. So MP3 files, your typical music file or sound file, is what we can add here. Now, my recommendation is if you're going to add sound to your video, that you edit it ahead of time as best you can. Because like the video clips, you can do some minimal editing at the beginning and at the end, but you can't, if you want to make transitions in between, it's kind of hard. So I'm going to go ahead and add the audio. And it's our MP3 file right here. It's the beach song, which is that little banjo music. And I'll go ahead and I'll add it. And you can see right off the bat that that sound clip exists much longer than our video. Well, I don't want it to last longer than the video. I want it to end right when the video ends, because if I render the video now, it will render all the way to when it goes to black, it will go all the way to the very end of the sound, not the end of the video. Whatever is the longest is the duration of our movie. So what I want to do is I want to move the playhead to the very end of our movie here. Okay. Now, I thought I changed this to, yeah, it is 3 seconds. There we go. Just seems longer. So I want it to go to the very end. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, this is where you use, with the sound layer here, select it, I can use that little pair of scissors and it will cut it at that point. Because I don't need this at the end, I can select it and hit delete to delete it. So now my sound ends at the very end, but will end abruptly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some fades to these. So again, what we want to do to the very end of our video here is we want it to fade to black. So that's what I'm going to do at the very end here. I'm going to go ahead and add a fade here. So let's go ahead and I want not a crossfade, but I want to fade to black from right here. And now if I scrub across this, you can see, whoops, I don't want my image there. As I go across here, notice that it fades to black. Likewise, we can come down here, and if you want, we can fade the music in. We can also fade the music out. So if I want to fade it in, how many seconds? Maybe 1 second, or even, maybe a half a second. And then fade it out, again, maybe 1 second. And I can click from here. So I just clicked on that little button, 1 second, and it will fade the music out. And we can change the volume from here. But here's one of the last gotchas. If I go back and I start to play this, I won't go all the way back to the beginning, but just before the clip of the boat. And remember, when I played it before, there is sound associated with the boat. Okay, well, we don't want that. If you do want it, then you can leave it in, but maybe you would want to adjust the level of the sound. But I'll go ahead and I'll play it. So you can see the boat sound is a little annoying. So you need to do one of two things. You either need to mute the boat sound or you need to get rid of it altogether. But not delete it from the clip, but just mute it. So to do that, we'll go ahead and I will click on this, move over the the playhead over the boat. Okay, I'm going to click on the boat from right here, and I'm going to switch from the video clip to the music. And where it says mute audio, that's what I'm going to do. So now it's muted, and I'll do the same. I didn't notice any sound from the dog clip, but I'll do the same here. I'll click here, and I'll switch from video to audio, and I'll mute the audio. I don't remember any of it being there, but now when we play it through, okay, you won't hear that. And there you have it. And that's it. We've edited some video. Now, added some sound, edited some sound, added some fades, added some cross, fades or, and transitions. We've animated some type. We've added an adjustment layer and turned our color image into a black and white with tint. You can add any of these adjustment layers to any of these clips. So if you want to go in and you want to really start, having some fun with the brightness and contrast, or with levels, or with curves, or anything, tweaking the color of any of it, you can do that. And it can transition, it can change over time by adding keyframes to that. So we've created our video. The next thing would be to do, which I probably should have done before and then periodically saved, is go in here and your file, and I'll save as, and I'll save it as a working file so that I don't accidentally mess up what I've done before. So here, what we've done in here, and I'll just say lesson 11, working file. Okay, and it saves it as a Photoshop file. But as I mentioned, that Photoshop file is unusable in any other area. If you want to burn it on a DVD, it won't work. If you want to upload it to YouTube, it won't work. It has to be an MP4 file. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to export it. Okay, and that will be the final thing that you do for this project. So I'm going to go to File, and after it's been saved, and I want to export. Export, and then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to export, and it's going to be render video. So I click on that, and we're just going to use the default settings. But it's initializing the video export to find out what it has to do. And obviously, the longer the video you have, the longer it will take to export this. Okay, sound and all into one, concise, chunk, singular, file format. And it takes, a couple of minutes for it to go through the motions and to do this. But we're not done yet, because it will bring up another dialog box. A little slow, I think, because I have other things going on in the background. And that's why it's kind of sluggish. Yours shouldn't take this long. Come on, come on, come on. A little bit faster, faster. Why you shouldn't be taking that long. Well, I do have a 3D model that's rendering in the background, so that's really slowing things down. And I have a fast laptop that I'm working on right now. So hopefully it won't take too much longer, and I can continue kind of filling air here with my gibberish. Come on. I'll kill it in a minute if it continues to take too long. And I'll probably just kill my rendering, my 3D model, and do it later. So I think I will. I'll just go ahead and I'll kill this. And I apologize. I'm going to go back to my rendering here. And I'm going to kill it. Because it's going to take several hours for that anyway. That's what's eating up the speed here. Okay, now I'll do that again. Oh, I apologize. Go to File, Export, Render Video. Now it should go much quicker. Yeah, see, it was the rendering that I had going on in the background that was eating up all the processor speed. Oh, well, trying to multitask and it didn't work. Slowing down a little bit at the end. But for most computers, when you render video, it does take a little while. And this will be the last thing we do today. And on Wednesday, if any of you have anything to show me, we won't do a final critique, but what we can do is I can give you a kind of a final progress report. Then you can maybe tweak it before we have our final critique next week. It is taking a while, but it's going quicker. I don't know why it's taking so long. So we're kind of like watching grass grow. I don't have anything else going on. Should be taking up all this memory. Well, a dialog box is going to pop up. And my recommendation is that you name it, you use just the default settings. But what it will give you the options to do is that if you wanted to render just frames 1 through 60, you could do that, or 60 through 120. You could render just those frames, and that's it. So it gives you those options, and it also gives you the options of what quality of rendering you want. So typically, at least for this exercise, we use the default settings, and that's it. Okay, so I'm not going to wait anymore for this. I'm just going to say that that's it, and I'll let you guys follow the textbook and finish that up, and then that's it. So, do you guys have any questions for me today? That's it for the demo. I've never edited any lengthy video in here. You know, it'd be 15 minutes, a half an hour, an hour. So I don't know how long it would take. There might, you know, if you were to use Premiere or Final Cut, you know, it might be much more efficient than working with editing video in Photoshop. I've never done a comparison, but that would be it. But as I said, for social media, for Instagram, for YouTube video, you know, really short YouTube videos, things like that, it would be a very useful tool to do some really short videos, either based on video clips or stills or whatever you want, or a combination of both, as we have with this particular lesson. Okay, so that's it for today. We're all done. It's 3 o'clock. And if there aren't any any questions, you guys are free. Let's see who's here. If anybody is added here. I think I have everybody. If I haven't, I can always add you later. So that's it for today. So if you don't have any questions for me, and this one will be posted on YouTube. The last two on painting, I couldn't do that, but they are on Canvas. And as I mentioned, for all of the future videos that we're going to look at, that are on lynda.com, I strongly recommend that you get an LA County library card so that you have access to your own lynda.com account through the public library. So that's it for today. I will go ahead and say goodbye. You guys are free to leave, and I'll go ahead and I'll stop sharing, and I'll pause the video, and that will be it for today. Okay. Bye-bye.